Why are you here today? Would you like to say what you're doing here?
I'm a lawyer who's practiced at the English Bar for over 30 years. I'm a Queen's Counsel. I'm known as a civil liberties lawyer. I did many of the big terrorist trials arising out of the Irish Troubles. I acted in many of the miscarriage of justice cases. I'm now involved in the wave of cases relating to the current terrorism and those allegations. And so I'm someone who has a very kind of clear handle on what's happening to civil liberties over the last 30 years. And I'm concerned about what's happened. And I'm also a member of the House of Lords, and so I see legislation going through, and I see what the implications of that legislation will be.
Okay. Would you say we're at a critical time right now, this year?
I think that one of the things that's happened is that this has been the British people are very kind of slow to rise. They aren't very revolutionary in the way that they behave. But what has happened is, I think, is a coming together of a number of different things. There's the coming together of the business of concern that there is about Britain piggybacking on perhaps the bad behaviour of the United States, Pakistan, and so on in relation to torture. Have we in any way colluded in that and benefited from it, and have we, for example, given comfort to that kind of behaviour? That anxiety is very high. The second is that people suddenly are very alert to the way in which computer programs, databases are being enhanced, and that they're all talking to each other, and there's now talk of actually creating a big centralised database. And people in Britain are very private. You know, that the old idea of the Englishman's home is his castle, the idea that, you know, I don't want the state trawling all over my life. What business is it of theirs? It's very much a British way of feeling, and there is concern that that is going to be taken away. And the other thing is that the recent debates about, you know, keeping people in custody for up to 42 days, the idea that the government was wanting that, wanted 90 days even before that, when the rest of the civilised world is talking about 2 or 3 days of people being kept in custody before charging. Somehow it seemed to be that something's happening which is contrary to our traditions, and I think that has all come together, and there's something in the zeitgeist now where people are saying, enough, we don't like what's going on, we want to call a halt.
And would you say there's an important role for the journalist here in this whole debate?
I mean, it's very difficult. Having discussions about liberty are inevitably complex, because people on the whole think, well, I'm free to do what I want to do, and they're not paranoid about the state. And it's very important that we have discussions about liberty, telling the stories of why liberty matters, of how it wasn't given to us. You know, we had to struggle for it. You know, that those who have power almost invariably enjoy it, and sometimes enjoy it too much. That power is delightful, and absolute power is absolutely delightful. And so power has to be contained. And in civilized societies, you have to restrain the powers of those who govern us. And so I think that what the role of the journalist is to constantly be alerting the general public to ways in which power is abused, and to ways in which there are erosions of the liberty that we should enjoy as citizens. And that is vital. That is the role. It's about, you know, comforting the afflicted and discomforting those who afflict us all. And so we need journalists. We need an open and free press, and now more than ever.
And would you say that it's becoming more difficult for journalists to operate now? The regulations are affecting them also, as well as the...
There is absolutely no doubt that states are becoming much more adept and clever about closing out journalism, about embedding the journalist and the journalism that they feel comfortable with. And so, you know, uncomfortable journalism is something that they try to actually sort of silence. And it's done in the subtlest of ways, as we know. Who is invited to the press conference, who gets the press accreditation, who gets to be involved, and who gets to hear and there's all that business of massaging the news that's put out, and governments now know that they have friendly journalists who will do that for them. We want to have more and more unfriendly journalists, more journalists who actually know that the ethics of good journalism mean you can never be too close to government.
And where can we go next? What can people do next? What are the next steps, would you say?
Well, for me, the next steps have to be about turning this convention into more than a talking shop. And it's right that, by and large, this kind of event is attended by, by people who, read the newspapers, who are on the web, or who are accessing the internet, and who are better informed. And one wants to have this debate in a wider way. I think that in Britain, people are very unhappy about the idea of identity cards. We've got to make that a campaign that is a much wider and popular campaign where people know how it might impact on their lives. And I think we have to take it to another stage. I want every single person who stands for government, local government, for any kind of position of power, to be questioned about these issues and where they stand on them, and it to become one of the issues by which people are tested before they actually stand as democrats within a democratic society.
Okay. Realistically, how long do you think it will take to make the kind of changes we're talking about?
Well, what one has to do is, there's going to be an election in a year's time, so there's a window of opportunity, and it's where you actually hold people's toes to the fire, and so politicians are going to get windy. Labour are windy that they're going to lose this election, and they have to be reminded that one of the things that people are angry about is this stuff. And then the Tories, who have been, swaggering their stuff and saying we're the protectors of liberty, will they be when they're in power? And so what we want are solid commitments, and they have to be manifesto commitments from the Conservatives, if they're going to win this election, that they actually are going to repeal it and not just get into a comfort zone as soon as they get their bottoms on those seats. And then if Labour want to be re-elected, then they have to roll back some of this stuff, and they have to start making commitments to do that. So either way, we, the electorate, have a lot of power, and we should be using it.
Helena Kennedy, thank you very much.